what's up? Welcome to Nostalgia. I am your host, Audra, and on this channel, what I love to do is watch movies from my past that I have so much nostalgic love for and see if they held up. While doing so, sometimes I'll be putting on makeup and sometimes I won't. You just never know. And if I should happen to ever get to 1,000 subscribers, I will actually put what makeup I am using in the description box. Until then, guess unto your heart's desire. Okay, that was weird. I am weird. All right, so for today's trip down nostalgic memory lane, I am taking you to the year 1991 with the Kurt Russell and Billy Baldwin led movie Backdraft. I'm sorry, I'm trying so hard not to laugh because... Now, to get started with this, I gotta tell you a few things. First, Backdraft was one of the first movies that I literally cried. I was like, oh my God. Like I was sobbing, okay? That movie, it hit my emotional feels. Also, you have to remember that back then, Billy Baldwin was that bitch, okay? Billy Baldwin, here was the thing. There was this whole, and it still happens now, but the dark-haired, light-eye guys, in my community, they're the light skins with green eyes, but I don't know what y'all call them in your community, to be honest, but there was something about a white man who had black hair and just brilliant blue eyes. We now know that's caused from loads and loads of inbreeding somewhere in the past, but that's neither the point. Maybe it is. The point is, this movie had me losing my entire mind back then. That's how I learned about fire, okay? That's how I learned about fire. Like my little firebug ass that was always trying to set everything on fire. I learned way too much about fire. And honestly, none of it was good. But the good news is, because of movies like Backdraft, I know how to stop a fire. I know how to start them as well. But, okay, so before we get into it, because if I can, I'm gonna try to put some smarts into it. I wanted to read what Wikipedia has to say about what a backdraft is. A backdraft is the abrupt burning of the superheated gases in a fire caused when oxygen rapidly enters a hot, oxygen-depleted environment. So essentially, it's like a dragon. In a room, this is why you have to check the doors, y'all. I'm giving you safety information. In a room with a lot of, when there's fire, you have to check the door. Because if the door is hot, there's fire in there, first of all. But also if you open it, it breathes. It's in there, because most of the time, very little oxygen's getting in and it's trying to snuff out. It's I can't, we're dying. And then you open the door, whoosh. It's dangerous stuff, y'all. Listen, so... And they even say, for example, when a window or door to an enclosed space is opened or broken, backdrafts are typically seen as a blast of smoke and or flame out of an opening of a building. Backdrafts present a serious threat to firefighters. There is some debate concerning whether backdrafts should be considered a type of flashover. Who cares about flashover? We're talking about backdraft. All right, y'all. Now let's get into the movie because I have learned you some things. And you're so happy because you learned, I learned, we learned together. Sometimes we're gonna learn, sometimes we're not. Listen, let's go. I don't always remember their names. This is a thing you need to know about me. I very rarely remember the names of the characters in the film. So I'm just gonna be calling them Billy and Kurt, okay? And Kurt is the older brother, obviously, because Kurt Russell was in everything back then. He was so fine. Everybody in his flowing locks. The way Kurt Russell's mullet just whipped around, it gave us everything back in the day. It was him and Mel Gibson, their mullets were just life. They had lives of their own. They were just separate characters. It was a good time. Anyway, you have Kurt Russell, who's the older brother. Billy Baldwin is the younger brother, okay? And they're, we see them with the movie opening of them as children, okay? They're little babes having a nice little time. And their father is a firefighter. Y'all, excitement already. And a fire gets called while they're playing around in the fire station. And for reasons I'm never really gonna quite understand, the firefighters were come on, little boys, come with us to a live burning fire. I'm sorry, but it's true. Like that, even in the 90s, in 1991, still didn't make sense. Okay, we had reached the stage of like child safety seats at this point, so it really didn't make sense that they were like, yeah, we're gonna take these two young boys out to a fire. Also, Kurt Russell plays their dad for like a very brief moment. So they're at the fire and they're like watching their dad, I guess, put out the fire, and everybody's like, oh, we got the fire out. And then you hear somebody yell like, Backdraft! And then Kurt Russell he plays the dad, and you know, he's dead. He dies. And the little boy, Billy Baldwin, is the baby brother. So baby Billy is like sitting there like seeing his dad burn alive in a building, which again, why did y'all have children at this? Like, someone needs to talk to them about this, because I feel like 91 we were also doing Stranger Danger. Like, I'm so confused why they thought it was a good idea to have that as the starting of the movie. And this movie was directed by Ron Howard, which listen, as I go through his films now, I'm like, was he good or were we stupid? It's fine. Anyways, so now and there's a picture of him in the paper, by the way, like little Billy Baldwin, baby Billy, holding his dad's fire hat, as he should, like crying, because obviously he just had to watch his dad get burnt to a crisp in a building. So I would apparently cry too if I had a dad that I loved. Mine's dead, but I didn't love him. So anyways, so I wouldn't be crying. So now they do this thing which was really popular in 90s movies. They don't do it as much now, but it was super popular in a 90s film to drop you into the movie, like, cause they would be like present day or whatever. And it was really popular to do this because it gave you the sensation that you were like part of the crew. So like you see all these like fire guys, because they're not exactly firemen yet. I'm calling them fire guys because they just like finished academy or whatever. You see all the fire guys and they're all like fire guying it up.
Brian McCaffrey, got some ID? Hey, Willie! I'll give you ID. Littlest McCaffrey.
It sounds so stupid when I say fire guying it up, but they were fire guying it up, and they were just like, and Billy Baldwin is there. He was tall too. He was like tall and hot. Like, I remember just like for reasons like I don't care about what he's done today, because that's not, listen, we're in 1991, thank you. So he was the cat's meow and the dog's meow, because he was fine. He, like, his hair was all swoopy and greasy like we liked it back then, like the ski Ulrichs, like that whole like extra greasy, like, and there was always like a lock that they couldn't keep out of their face, like one like perfectly like swooped piece that was just like, and it went past their eye, was like down here, and you were just like anyways, Billy Baldwin is there with some unnamed guy. We'll call him Pete. And they're like talking about things. You find out, I guess, that Billy Baldwin has had a lot of jobs, y'all. Like a lot of jobs. So many jobs. The bartender gets us, tuned into it.
Aspen Snowmobile Tours, Brian McCaffrey, Assistant Director Sales. Cattle Drive, Mobile Log Cabin. Brian Sound Spectrum, Direct High-End Stereo Sales. This is your own company. It's a big step, huh?
I was ahead of my time, Willie.
And so then they're trying to be like, oh, well, what house do you think you're gonna get? And Billy's like, I already know what house I'm getting, firehouse that is. He's like, I already know because I got the fire chief a thing of scotch, like a case of scotch from somewhere. I don't know, I guess that's how you used to bribe people back in the day, is with booze. And today that wouldn't work, you know what I mean? Maybe for some people, but for most, it's not gonna work, you know what I mean? You're gonna be out here trying to bribe someone with a case of scotch. Like these days you'd have to be like, listen, I will get you 1 million followers on TikTok if you let me do da-da-da-da. Listen, let me live my life. Let me live in my delusions. So, and then they're out there and they're like celebrating. They hear like, I don't know what happens, but somehow they're outside and they're like, woo, we're firemen, yay. And they're very excited about it. And then we run into the love interest of Billy Baldwin, who plays her. Let me go look, because I just forgot her name, like right off rip. Like I had it and then it just left, because she was in everything too at the time. Jennifer Jason Leigh, I just remembered. So Jennifer Jason Leigh is his love interest, and they have this like awkward kind of a meeting, and she's like, it's been 6 years, and now she works for like the mayor of the town, let's say, or the governor, the mayor. we're gonna say Governor, who's played by that man who always played this guy, who like literally played listen, if there was a 90s movie with government or police corruption, this guy was always the bad guy. You knew it as soon as you saw him. You're like, oh, he's bad. Because I think he plays the same slimy dirtbag in The Negotiator, which will, if y'all are interested, I will definitely take you down that nostalgia road. But he always plays the bad guy. Y'all know this. I am bronzing myself to the high heavens because I just love it. And now that it's not hot in Texas, I'm living. So anyways, you have him in there and she's like so excited. She's like, and he's like, but then guess what? Fire! So the boys run after all of the newbies, which, you know, now you look at it and you're like, I don't think that that is how fire works. Like, I don't think that just because you graduated from fire school that you just like get to show up at fire uninvited. Like they did. They all just show up. They're all like fucking stoked. And this is when Billy runs into his big brother, Kurt motherfucking Russell.
Get out of here. Way to go, world!
And so he runs into Kurt Russell because Kurt Russell's coming out, and guess what? He looks just like his dad. That's because he played the dad, but he looks just like their dad coming out of the building, you know, saving lives or whatever. And, you know, there's a moment where Billy Baldwin's like looking at him like, oh my God, dad. And then he's like, oh no, it's just Kurt. So it's kind of a weird like moment because it flashes back kind of to like the beginning of the movie where he like sees his dad like as this like Superman. And so you see this happening, you see this going down, you're like, okay, don't worry about this. And so then Kurt Russell and Billy, for reasons, apparently I guess they don't get along, I guess. Because what's gonna happen here is like, Kurt Russell's like, no, you're not going to that other fire station. You're coming to my fire station, which, you know, Billy Baldwin didn't want. Billy Baldwin did not want to go to this other station with his brother. We're never going to find out why, by the way. Just so you know, you're just like never going to find out why he didn't want to go. He just didn't want to go to his brother's firehouse. But for reasons, Kurt Russell didn't care and wants him to go, which is interesting as well.
You're gonna be with the toughest company in the city. 17. My company.
Like, why do you want your estranged brother to be in your firehouse? And so Billy's upset because he really doesn't want to hang out with Kurt. He's just like, Kurt Russell, I don't want this life for me. And Billy Baldwin is just, you know, and Kurt Russell is just like, I don't care. You're gonna come to my fire station. I'll see you in the morning. Don't be late. And he's like, okay. But Billy does try to go and see Kurt Russell at his house. And I don't know what part of the movie is because listen, the thing about this movie is that there's a lot of things happening, but nothing happening at all. This makes me feel stupid when I say it out loud. Cause like every time I say it, I'm just like, oh my God, I loved this movie with like every part of my being. And now it's just like, okay, anyways, it was 1991. I'll give it that. Billy Baldwin does show up at Kurt Russell's house only to find out, lo and behold, that Kurt Russell doesn't live there, but his wife does, played by the indomitable Rebecca De Mornay. Now listen, if you needed a hot blonde in your movie who, like, she wasn't really gonna do anything, she was just gonna be there. Like, listen, and don't get mad at me, I love me some Rebecca De Mornay. She was like fiery, super sexy, such a hot babe. But like, she always showed up as a love interest who didn't really do much except for this like sexy leg move, which I will show you later on. Later on, I'll show you the sexy leg move. So anyways, she is in there and that's how he ends up finding out that like they are getting divorced. His brother is getting a divorce and he didn't even know about it because he's just a shiftless young man who can't really commit to anything in particular, as we saw from the very beginning with the bartender, you know. And then Kurt Russell points it out again, be like, this is your second time trying to do fire, like why are you even gonna do this? And Billy Baldwin's like, fire's in my blood, bro. And he's just very much like, fires in my blood, fires in my blood, fires in my blood. And it's like, okay. And they're doing like fire training and exercises. Along the way, though, we start realizing that there's some kind of like firebug around town. And there's a fire inspector. Listen, it's played by Robert De Niro. I didn't even remember Robert De Niro being in this movie, but Robert De Niro is in this movie. Y'all, young Robert De Niro was a force to be reckoned with. Like, I still, when I saw him show up in this movie, I'm not gonna lie, my asexual panties dropped for just like a moment. Like, I just had like a moment where I was like, come back. Wow. He just had this like, I don't know how to explain it. He had this thing that just like quite literally made you kind of, I don't know. Robert De Niro was everything, y'all. He just gave, and you just wanted to give it to him. Every day, all day. Robert De Niro just had that sexiness that required you to just like, you know what I'm saying? Okay, anyways, so you have this whole thing going on with them trying to figure out who's setting these fires, because they start realizing that it's like not an accident, and it's not a regular fire, y'all. It is a Backdraft. That's right, the name of the movie. The type of fires that are being set are backdrafts, and they're beginning to think that there's a specific reason for this backdraft because it's only killing one person. And that is the thing. Like, Robert De Niro's looking, being like, you know, he could have taken out the whole city block, and yet he doesn't. Meanwhile, as what's his face, Billy Baldwin, is attempting to like be a good fireman, he's just like not having a good time of it. You know, he ends up rescuing. He gets into a real fire, ends up rescuing a mannequin. Embarrassing, humiliating, and everybody's like making fun of him for it, like, haha, you rescued a mannequin. Which honestly, he wouldn't have had this trouble if these people wore masks. I know that it's 1991, but even in 1991, they were wearing masks in their fires. I don't know what was going on in this movie, y'all, but like legitimately, every time they went into a fire, like Kurt Russell, like I guess for filming purposes, but like I know it's Kurt Russell. Like, you don't, I don't have to see him like not wearing a mask, breathing in fumes and toxins on purpose. Think that this shit is okay. At no point was I like, oh no, he's super tough because he's doing, like, no. I was actually very disturbed by it. I was like, why is he not wearing a mask? Is anybody gonna talk to this man about potentially like putting a mask on? And the answer is no, they're not. No one's gonna talk to him about it. They say it like maybe once or twice, but not enough to where you would feel like, oh, this is significant. Like, he just won't wear a mask. It's very awkward. Like, sir, there's like poison in the air. It's not just a fire. It's like all the shit that's burning. And you know, we live in America, and we know that everything that's flammable here is like, it's already killing us in the air as it stands. Now it's on fire. Yeah, okay. By the way, this isn't like told in order. This is just like, as like, cause here's the thing about this one. It's hard to tell in order because like, nothing is happening. Like, there's a few things that happen here and there where you're like, oh, but nothing to where you're like, where you're understanding. Because I keep telling you, when I told you at the beginning of this that you never find out why they're estranged brothers, you don't. They just keep arguing about shit. You don't know why they're fighting, and you don't know what happened for them to just be estranged. They just are throughout the entirety of this film. They are just, and nobody gives you any insight into it. And it's the same thing with their divorce, with Rebecca De Mornay's divorce from Kurt Russell. They don't tell you exactly like what happened. Like, I guess they're supposed to have this implication that Kurt Russell is just like going off the rocker, and he keeps like, there's a thing where they keep talking about how like the fire's not gonna get you, it won't get us, like they're special. It doesn't really come into play. Anyhow, as I was saying earlier, there's a firebug. So then, because Billy Baldwin just really cannot cut it as a fireman, also, most importantly, I think this happens after, but the point is Billy Baldwin can't cut it as a fireman. He just really can't do it. He's like, this is not for me, which is fine, dude. Like, don't do something that doesn't really, you know, float your boat. And like Kurt Russell is like so happy about it. And Billy Baldwin's girlfriend, Jennifer Jason Leigh, or ex-old girlfriend, Jennifer Jason Leigh, ends up getting him a job to like work for the fire people, the fire investigators, where Robert De Niro is. And they start investigating these fires and trying to figure out exactly what's going on with them. Because as Robert De Niro said previously, he's like, there's something going on with these because it doesn't make sense that he could be taking out a whole block. That's weird. So then they're like, let's go visit the premier firebug. So they go visit the premier firebug. Now, when they go visit this premier firebug, first of all, you see Robert De Niro go see him one time, which is to stop his probation. Because somebody says that he's going to get out on parole. There we go. Not probation, but to stop his parole. Bobby D goes to the prison and they have this whole like delightful exchange where like they get these like the parole board people get these answers from, you know, Donald Sutherland, but Donald Sutherland is just like, oh y'all, when Bobby gets in there and starts asking some questions, it gets a little rough.
You burned her. What do you do to old ladies, Ronald?
Burn them.
Because he just really exposes Donald Sutherland for being cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, y'all. He wants to burn the world down. Of course he does. Of course he does. He's a firebug.
What would you like to do to the whole world?
Burn it all.
You're firebugging, don't stop. I'm just gonna say. Mine did. Because I didn't set anything on fire, technically. So then they have to try to kind of figure out like what kind of monster would be out here setting fires to kill like one person, right? And they begin to think like, oh my God, what could it be? And it turns out, per Donald Sutherland, here's the thing that really cracks me up. Okay, hold on. We gotta go backwards because Kurt Russell, we gotta start talking about Kurt Russell's character. Because as I said previously, he's in the midst of a divorce from Rebecca De Mornay. And Rebecca De Mornay is fine as wine. She shows up to some, I don't know why she did this. Like, that's some bitch ass move on her part. Like, I think it was rude. Personally, I'm just like, girl, you should not have shown up like that. That was not nice. But, because I guess there's some other dude and they went to some fire event. I'm going to call it a fire event. And they go to this fire event. She's there with her new man. She's like, oops, sorry, Kurt. Like, I just had to do this thing like with this I just had to like bring the man I'm dating to your event because I'm that like very 90s, because like who does that? What kind of monster? Like, girl, you are divorcing this man. There is no need to antagonize him like this. There she goes, and Kurt Russell gets in a fight with that man, and everybody's like, and also he gets in a fight with the man over his brother.
Steven! Got anything else you want to say about my brother?
Somehow or another, Kurt Russell goes over to like talk to Rebecca. I keep calling her De Mornay. He goes over to talk to Rebecca. He's like, hey girl. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry that you feel bad. And then they make sweet hot love where she does this sexy leg maneuver. Listen, why are her toes pointed when she's making love? Nobody knows. But it's because of that I thought, like, listen, I'm autistic, okay? So I thought you had to be pointing your toes when you you don't. Maybe that's why I don't like it. I was too busy trying to do all the body shit in the 90s. Anyways. But then she ends up being like, oh yeah, this was like a one night thing. I can't really be with you because reasons. Like, again, you don't exactly know why they're getting divorced other than he's just kind of lost his mojo on being like a good guy and a good fireman or whatever. So you're like, okay, I guess. Like, this movie has lots of questions. Meanwhile, there's a point where Jennifer Jason Leigh gets her freak on with Billy Baldwin and on the top of a fire truck, okay? And the fire truck is going to a fire. This is the point where it happens. Now I remember. See, I have to go back and around and around. And so she's going, they're like doing the dirty on top of the fire truck, and then I guess nobody checks the top of the fire truck before they take off. I mean, I don't know why you would, because why would you expect someone to be riding it? But anyways, or fucking on it. So they get there. Bull is what, that's it. Kurt Russell is called Bull for reasons. I think because he is bullheaded. He don't listen to nobody. And they go into this fire because he has his new probie. Now that Billy isn't his probie, because Billy's in fire investigation and CSI Fire. And so Bull Kurt Russell goes into the fire with his new probie, who I'm gonna call Pete. I think I was calling him Pete before. Why did I open my phone? We don't know. Anyway, so he goes in there and they're like doing fire things, and you're supposed to be checking the doors. Remember I said earlier about the backdraft and how you gotta check the damn door?
Well, when the door's open, if it's hot, don't get out.
Well, I don't know what fire school this probably went to, but it wasn't the one where he learned about checking the door, because this fool like went to go open the door, and before Kurt Russell could even really yell out like, "Hey fam, did you check the door?" Opens the door, burns his ass to a crisp. It is horrific. And everybody's mad at Bull because Kurt Russell, Bull Kurt Russell. Because, you know, he took him to this fire and like let him do all this shit when he really wasn't ready. And him and him and Billy Baldwin, there's so many Baldwins, now I'm getting them all confused. And they're not even all in this movie, it's just the one. Anyways, they get into a fight in the hospital because that solves things, like rolling around on the ground. Although, listen, listen, you know what I'm gonna say. And I'm not gonna say it, but you know what I'm saying. Two fine-ass men just rolling on the ground, okay. The 90s were very gay. They don't want to admit it, but a lot of their movies were very homoerotic. Moving on. So they got into this battle, so now they're even more estranged, okay? Meanwhile, so now Billy Baldwin, fire investigation with Bobby D. Bobby D has all these scars on his back from some other fire that he was in. And the fire was set by Donald Sutherland, and that's why he has all these fires on his back, and that's why he goes every time to parole. See, I told you I'd be able to get back around to it somehow, some way. Ways. What happens now is that Bobby De Niro got into, like, they go into a house to investigate the fire, but somebody comes in, starts beating them up, and they're like, oh no, and they get into a scuffle. And for Billy Baldwin to save De Niro, because De Niro gets hit and he is out. Now Billy Baldwin is fighting, okay? Fighting. And then with the guy he's fighting, because masked man, puts him up against a radiator, because I guess back then they had like radiators in your house. Do you know what I'm talking about? With the heat. Anyway, he gets burnt on it. And he's like, ah! And he gets away because Billy Baldwin's like, anyway, I can't keep fighting you. I gotta save Robert De Niro. So he drags Robert De Niro out. Robert De Niro's in the hospital. And Billy Baldwin goes back to see Donald Sutherland. Now, in order for Donald Sutherland to talk to him, apparently Billy has to admit that he really wanted to be a fireman just like his daddy. And he's like, yes, I did. Now tell me what I need to know. And Donald Sutherland's like giving him clues. Basically, it boils down to it's a fireman. And for no reason at all, Billy is immediately like, I gotta go check on my brother. Now, y'all, watching this movie back, it like, my spirit, I started to cry laugh because I was like my face literally did this scrunch where I was like, why would you think it's your brother? What? Like, I just sat there being like, yeah, your brother's been a little like unhinged. But why did you jump to like exactly him? Like, oh yeah, my brother's been unhinged. He's getting divorced. And that is why he's setting fires. Like, that's why he's doing this. What? Like, again, I completely understand, like, okay, there's firefighters, but like Billy literally doesn't even check anybody else. Like, he goes to his brother's houseboat that he's been living on. Yes, he's been living on a houseboat. He goes to his brother's houseboat that he has been living on, checks to see if he has the ingredients, because every firefighter has this shit. And like, they even discuss that. That's the thing that Donald Sutherland even says, like, things that a firefighter would have access to. Bro, like, why are you not checking every fireman? Anyway, he gets there, checks on his brother. He ends up finding out that his brother does have that shit. And, you know, it's like, oh my God, my brother is a firebug. So sorry. I can't stop laughing because it's just, every time I think about this, it just makes me laugh harder, because I'm just like, you literally didn't think about anyone else. Like, at no point did he consider anyone. Like, there wasn't a time he considered not one other person in the firehouse. He was like, they don't even show him like investigating, you know, they don't show any of that. It's just like him being like, it's my brother. And then, you know, Kurt Russell realizing, like, coming to this realization where he's like, oh snap, Billy thinks it's me. Billy thinks I'm setting fires, and like, that's weird. So off Billy Baldwin goes to like look into his brother's shit. Like he's been on the boat. Now he's gonna go and like look in his brother's locker. Because of course, if you're an arsonist, you're definitely gonna keep all your arson tools in your locker at work so that anybody can find them. But he goes in there, he doesn't find anything. He's like, oh snap. And then as he's looking into the fire department, because they have a few shower scenes in this movie, again, they're not necessary at all. Like, here's the thing. I've talked to men before. I know, it's a shocker. But I've talked to men before. They don't talk to each other while they're buck-ass naked in the shower. My understanding of it. Like, straight, like, the cisheads don't do that. They're just in there. Like, the rest of us are fine. We don't care. Like, because the body's a body, and I'm really not trying to get up on you. But, like, the cisheads do not just be in the shower, buck-ass naked, having combos. And I get that maybe they're different because they're firemen or whatever, but I just don't buy that. I'm sorry. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. You're not going to get me to buy that shit. I was just like, okay. But they have multiple scenes like that, and now you see this guy, and I haven't brought him up until now because there's really no reason to. His name is Axe. They call him Axe. He's like a grizzled old white man, and they call him Axe. I guess because he handles the axe. I don't really know. They don't do a good job of explaining him. The reason I don't bring him up until now is because he's literally like, this is a thing that the 90s did all the time in movies like this, in thrillers and whatnot. They would have a non-main character, main character. And here's what I mean. They would make jokes here and there, but they weren't prominent enough for you to like really care about them. Like you weren't, like they didn't do anything to show you that this character was in any way important to the movie. You know, like, and he's supposed to be, as we move along, like a really good friend of Kurt Russell's, and he's kind of in the movie, but he doesn't do stuff. Like, you don't know anything about Axe. Like, just like you don't know anything about anybody else in this movie. Like, you don't know any of these characters. They're just out here having problems, and you don't know why. You're like, why are y'all mad at each other? The script requires us to be angry. You're like, oh, okay. As Billy is walking by from his investigation of his brother, he then sees Axe. And you know what Axe has on his shoulder? A perfect freaking burn mark from the radiator. Is it radiator? I'm gonna say radiator. Anyway, the perfect fucking burn mark. And he's like, oh my God, Becky, look at her butt. So then he's like walking out and he's like, oh God, I'm gonna have to do something about this. And as he's walking out, Kurt Russell's out there. And Kurt Russell's like, Billy, it's Axe, isn't it? Again, they don't tell you. I'm sorry I'm yelling. There's no reason that Kurt Russell would think this. He's just like, it's Axe, isn't it? And he's like, and Billy's like, yeah. There's no reason. They don't even do like a montage of fires, or like they don't do a montage of investigation. They don't do a montage of fires, nothing. It's like literally Kurt Russell's like, oh my God, Billy was on my boat, and like he obviously thinks that it's me, which it's not. And then when he sees Billy at the firehouse, he's like, it's gotta be Axe. There's no reason. I'm sorry, I'm scream laughing. I know, it's terrible. Like, but it's just, it kills me. Cause there's no reason why he thinks that. Like, I remember, like, listen, if I can, on occasion, I'm gonna have to start like recording me watching the shit, but I'm afraid to do it because I'm afraid if I record myself watching it, I won't have a genuine, authentic reaction. But my reaction when he did, I literally was looking at the TV like, trying to get the math to math because it wasn't mathing. I was like, how did you decide that it's Axe too? So anyway, just as they're like, okay, we're gonna confront him together. But before even that, for reasons, Billy's still like, Kurt, promise me that you're not part of this. Bro, he just told you he's not doing it. But you know what? Baby Billy don't care. But of course, it's fire time. There's a big ass fire and they're taking off. And now like everybody knows, like Billy and Kurt Russell know that it's Axe. And they're like trying to stop Axe. Because they're like, brother, you cannot just like take matters into your own hands. Also, in the fire investigation, they end up kind of finding out, I got to take you back because of course I forgot. They end up kind of finding out that everyone who's dying had something to do with some kind of scheme, some kind of money laundering scheme, basically, like where government's getting more money for shit. Meanwhile, they're like chopping the fire department down into pieces. So that becomes important now. Jennifer Jason Leigh gives that information to Billy, and she's just like, I lost my job. And it's like, oh, okay. And then she just like leaves town. You don't ever see her again. She just like shows up as a love interest to hump Billy one time and provide the information that the gov mayor is a dirty gov mayor. And so she does that. She loses her job. Now we find out that Axe knew about this as well and was like, our guys are out here dying.
I just couldn't let it go, Bull.
He's like, our guys are out here dying so that these rich people can be richer, basically. And he's like, I couldn't let them do it, fam. I just couldn't. It was too far. They're like, you know, we don't have enough people, which is okay, I guess, bro. I guess that's the direction we're going. You're just like, I'm gonna set shit on fire. Okay. And Kurt Russell's just like, okay, bro, you're gonna have to put it together. We're gonna have to take you in. You can't do it like this. Like, you can't just be killing people because things aren't going our way. And I feel like this scene is supposed to be super touching, but it just isn't to me. I'm like watching it, I'm like, why is he crying? I think it's because you didn't know anything about Axe anyway. So it's like weird as shit that he's so like, Bull, I just couldn't let him do it, Bull. I couldn't let him do it. You're like, all right, bro. And so here we are. You have him over here being like, I couldn't let him do it. They're in the middle of a fire, an inferno, mind you, that he probably set. And he's just like, I couldn't let him do it, Bull. And then for some reason, like the fire snaps this bridge that they're standing on, and it's like, oh my God, oh no, not the bridge. And it gets like, it snaps, and of course, you know, Axe is falling. At the very beginning of the movie, there's this part where like this guy falls through this floor, and they're like, let me go, and they're like, you go, we all go. And okay, so that comes back at the end. Like Bull is like falling, he's like, let me go, Bull. And Bull's just like, you go, we go.
You go. We go.
Billy is coming. He's trying to save them. And literally, for no reason, Kurt Russell just like, let's go. Like they could have gotten rescued. Like Billy was right there. he just lets go, okay? And then they both go falling. Axe gets like burned the fuck up. Meanwhile, Kurt Russell's just like laying there, like, you know, damaged because he took like a ginormous fall for zero reason, by the way. There was no reason for him to let go. None. He could have just kept holding on. He didn't. And you're like, okay. And then this is when I guess the firefighting instincts that have been in his blood finally kick in, because Billy Baldwin wants the rescue team to be able to get in and rescue his brother. So what does he do? He grabs that fire hose by its long, thick length, and he sprays it around, dousing everythh with liquid. And then Kurt Russell like pops up for a second and goes, "That's my brother." God damn it.
Look at him. That's my brother, god damn it.
And so there they are. Kurt Russell gets rescued. They're in the ambulance, him and Billy, and you know, Kurt is like fading into the badness, he's going into the bright light, all right? And he ends up saying to Billy, he's like, don't tell him about Axe. It'll hurt the department. And Billy's like, I won't. And then Kurt goes, who's your big brother? You are. Yo, I started laughing at that. I feel like I was supposed to be sad. And I think that in 91, I was 11. And I probably saw this movie in like 92, 93 because that was when I made it to the US. So I feel like 12 or 13-year-old me was still crying about this, okay? I was still crying. I was like, oh my God, you are. And then they have the end where I thought like, okay, this is the part where I'm really gonna tear up, right? I was like, this is the part, this is the moment, because they're gonna have the funeral. But the whole time I'm watching this funeral, I'm just like, no, this is a really nice procession and I really like the music, glory be to all above, and like mad love to firefighters. However, like Kurt Russell could literally be alive right now. All he had to do was grab a hold of his brother's hand. Like, why did you fling yourself off the ledge, man? And here's the thing that bothers me. Like, yes, you're getting divorced, okay? Because like, basically what you're trying to make me feel like is because he's getting divorced, he was just like, that's it. I have nothing to live for. Man has a child. Like, he's over here letting like, let Axe die and don't tell nobody. You know what I mean? Let that happen. But why did he have to die too? It doesn't make sense. So I'm not sad. Rebecca De Mornay is crying, looking, you know, stunning as a grieving widow. And then now Billy Baldwin is back in fire, and just like his brother did to him at the beginning, where he's like trying to help him with this fire gear, he's like, you're doing it wrong. It's very like, and then everybody's like, oh look, it's like Bull Jr., like look at it. And then it has like this excerpt. And that was the end of the movie. Now again, this is a Ron Howard film. And I feel like after I watched that, I was like, I have to explore more Ron Howard films, because I have to understand if they were all like this or if this was just like a one-off for me. Like, was this just a one-off for me and like other Ron Howard films are great and this one? Because here are the problems with Backdraft and why, like, this is why it doesn't hold up, okay? Number one, why are these two brothers mad at each other? No one tells you why. It doesn't make sense. They don't explain any of their dynamic. It's just that their dad died, but they both lost their dad. I don't know really what happened. They don't explain any particular instance in which made them like cut ties. Number two, why were they getting divorced? Why was Kurt Russell and Rebecca De Mornay getting divorced? Like, what was the exact problem in their marriage? Was it just that he was losing it? Because they keep trying to show him as like this out of control guy who doesn't want to wear his helmet. But it doesn't really come across that way, with the exception of him like getting a little like the Kurt Russell, you know, crazy eye that he used to do, where he'd be like, yeah. But it doesn't really come across that way enough, and there's not enough information to figure out like why is he crazy like that? That's the third thing. Why does he think the fire won't get him? Like, I get that his dad died in fire, so I feel like that would make you think more that the fire is gonna get you, not that it's not gonna get you. You know, why was Jennifer Jason Leigh there? What was she doing there? Why did she leave town? Like, girl, you weren't gonna lose your job. Like, there was gonna be a new gov mayor. You could work for the new gov mayor. Just because you turned over documents because that guy's like, why did you leave town? Were you gonna get a job in another town? That's not really explained. Why did Kurt Russell like just leap off to his death basically? Like, again, I understand that you're going through some things. Like, I get that you're fighting demons, but this was the devil himself. He was not even fighting demons at this point. This was the devil. Had to be. Because there's no way you leave your fine ass wife, Rebecca De Mornay, behind. Cause like, listen, you can still hit it. She's still gonna let you hit it. She already did. You can get it together. You can get it together. Like, come on. Just get it together. How come we didn't see more of Axe? I don't know what number we're on now, but how come we didn't see more of Axe to understand what's going on? How come the plot behind the arsons was just like, it just showed up somewhere, and it's a bad, like, it doesn't even make sense. It's just basically like, we're cutting the funds to the fire department for like other projects, I guess. And it wasn't even like for these guys to get rich. They just wanted to do like, well, it was because those were projects that they were invested in, but it just seems weird that they would be doing that and like not, first of all, not only doing that and not getting caught, it was 1991, so I guess that does make sense, but it's just like a weird, like it doesn't even really make sense, and it doesn't make sense that like Bull would, or Axe would go to the trouble of creating backdraft fires to kill each and every one of these dudes without it coming out, without like, how would it not, because like this was back in the days of intrepid reporting, y'all. So you're telling me not one reporter noticed the link in the deaths at all? What was Robert De Niro doing there? Why was he in this movie? I don't mind eye candy. I just don't understand his whole point of being there. He was just like, I do fire shit here. That was very clearly like, I'm Robert De Niro and I'm getting a paycheck. That was it. That was what that movie was to me for him. Cause like, it wasn't that it was beneath him. It's just that his character doesn't really, like, there's zero character development in this movie. Hello and welcome to While I Was Editing. I'm your host, Audra. How come this is in Chicago and no one sounds like they're from Chicago? Billy Baldwin sounds like he's from like California. So does Kurt Russell. Rebecca De Mornay sounds like she came from another realm, which is probably true because she's that sexy. And then Robert De Niro still sounds like he's in the middle of the Bronx. So it's just like, I know that it's 1991, but it's just hilarious to me. Like, why did they have to set it in Chicago? They could have just set it somewhere else. I know that Chicago Fire is like well known, but it was just a thing where I was like, why did you set it? Why did you set this in Chicago? No one sounds like, literally no one in this movie. No one sounds like they're from Chicago. All right, that's it for me. Because I'm going to start drinking wine because it's whatever time of the day that it is when I decide to do that. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, let me know what other movies that you're interested in. And in the comments, tell me about your Backdraft movie experience. If you're gonna go watch it again, go watch it, come back, and then let me know as well. I think it's on Netflix still. So like, did you have the same feeling? Also, drop movie suggestions below and I will see you in the next one. Bye.